The doctor looks at me and he's like, can you sit down? I'm like, no. It's not gonna be fun. He's like, can you please sit down? I'm like, no, I am not gonna sit down.
Sania straciłaś.
I dropped all I had in my hands. I went to the bathroom and I started punching walls and screaming. My boss from the beauty shop, she went after me and she's like, Kasha, what are you doing? I'm like, I just got a phone call that something is wrong at home. She's like, can you stop screaming? I'm like, no. I don't know what's wrong, but the feeling is not okay. She tried to calm me down and I just knew at that moment that something is wrong. I went out of the bathroom and I went to my customer and I'm like, I can't finish your hair color. Something is wrong at home. I have to go home. I picked up my phone again and I tried calling my daughter. She wouldn't pick up. I knew my parents were 5 blocks away from me and I haven't talked to them for years. But what I did, I picked up the phone and I called the house and I told them, can you please go to my house? Something is wrong. Okay. In the meantime, my parents have called me and they asked me for the address where I was in the beauty shop. And they told me that there's no way I'm getting in the car and driving home. So I gave him my address and I was waiting for someone to come and pick me up and take my car. I tried calling my son and my daughter, but nobody was picking up the phone. It took my brother like 2 hours to come home, to come to my shop from my hometown when it usually takes 30 minutes. They got lost. Took them 2 hours to get and pick me up. That was the longest 2 hours of my life. Once they came and got me, I'm like, what's going on? They're like, we don't know. I'm like, how could you not know? I'm like, what is going on? And they're like, there's a lot of cops in front of your house. There's paramedics and there's everybody. There's TV stations. There's everybody. I'm like, what is going on? They're like, we don't know. All we know is that the paramedics told us to grab you and bring you to the hospital. I was like, okay, that's where we're going. I'm like, where are we going? I'm like, Edward's hospital. They're like, yeah. We drove there. I was crying and shaking and hitting everything I could in the car. Then I walk into the hospital and I asked the nurse, I'm here to see my daughter. She walked me into the room and asked me to sit down. All I remember was just white walls in the room, and there was a chair in the middle of the room. The doctor comes into the room, and I'm standing there and I'm like, where is my daughter? The doctor looks at me and he's like, can you sit down? I'm like, no. He's like, can you please sit down? I'm like, no, I am not gonna sit down. I'm like, where is my daughter? He looks at me again and I'm shaking all over the place and I'm like so anxious and so angry and so agitated. And I'm like, can you tell me where my daughter is? He looks at me again and he's like, your daughter is dead and your husband is dead too. When I heard that, I started punching everything that could be in the room. I started standing up and sitting down and leaning, shaking and punching everything in the room. I don't know how long it took me to do that. After a while, I'm like, can I see my daughter? And the doctor looks at me, he's like, no. I'm like, how come? I'm like, why don't you let me see my daughter? I'm like, where is she? He's like, she's in the room with him. I'm like, how can she be in the room with him? I'm like, what happened? He's like, your husband took a knife, stabbed your daughter in the heart and hung himself in your house.